The blade pressed against my throat before I saw her move. One moment I stood at attention in the diplomatic hall, the next the alien queen's guard had crossed 15 meters in silence and pinned me to the obsidian wall. Her eyes were triple-lidded, each membrane flickering independently as she studied my face for deception. Behind her, the delegation had frozen mid-step. Ambassador Chen's hand hovered near his sidearm. The treaty signing was supposed to happen in 3 minutes. "Release him," the matriarch said. Her voice carried like wind through crystal chambers, never raised but absolute. The guard stepped back instantly. I remained against the wall, feeling the cold stone through my dress uniform. The matriarch approached with movements that seemed to fold space rather than cross it. Her ceremonial robes shifted colors I had no names for. She stopped within arm's reach. Protocol demanded I bow. Protocol demanded I avert my eyes from royalty of the Kashari throne court. I did neither. Something in her posture told me she was testing for exactly that response. "You were on the colony ship Meridian," she said. Not a question. "Yes, Your Radiance." My voice stayed level. Training held even when my pulse hammered. "You commanded the evacuation during the solar flare event." Again, statement not query. "I coordinated civilian extraction. I held the rank of lieutenant at the time." Her center eye focused while the outer two scanned my uniform, my stance, the barely visible scar along my left hand from third-degree radiation burns. "You carried children across the reactor deck while it was failing. The blast doors were compromised. You absorbed lethal radiation doing so. The medical team had better shielding protocols than I expected. I survived." Her species equivalent of contemplation. "You did not list this service in your military record. It wasn't relevant to my posting, Your Radiance. You were court-martialed." The words hit harder than the guard's initial strike. Ambassador Chen's face went pale. This information wasn't in any file they'd given him. It wasn't in any file that should exist outside sealed military archives. "Yes," I said, "for refusing to abandon 18 human refugees during the border evacuation at Kepler, or 42B. They were civilians. The evac window hadn't closed. Command ordered you to withdraw. You disobeyed." "I did." "You were stripped of rank and imprisoned for 14 months, 16 months. Good behavior reduced the sentence." Her outer eyes closed. The center eye studied me with an intensity that felt like surgical instruments mapping bone structure. "This is why you serve as a diplomatic guard now, not a field officer." "I serve where I'm assigned, Your Radiance." "Do you regret your choices?" The question hung in the air. Like a blade suspended by spider silk, every person in the hall understood this answer would determine whether the treaty happened. Whether two civilizations found peace or drifted toward the war, both sides desperately wanted to avoid. "No," I said. The matriarch's robe shifted to deep violet. Her bodyguard tensed. Ambassador Chen looked ready to tackle me himself. Then the doors at the far end of the hall opened. A small figure entered, flanked by attendants who moved with the careful precision of those guarding something infinitely precious. The child was maybe 7 years old by human standards, though Kashari aged differently. Her skin held the opalescent quality of youth, her eyes not yet developed into the triple-lidded complexity of adulthood. She ran, not the careful glide of Kashari nobility, but an actual run, her small feet slapping against stone. Her attendants reached for her and missed. The matriarch's guard moved to intercept. "Asha, stop!" the matriarch commanded. The child ignored her completely. She ran straight toward me, past the guard, past the frozen ambassador, and wrapped her arms around my leg with surprising strength. "You're him," she said in accented standard. "You were the one from the ship." At the top of her head pressed against my hip, at the way her hands gripped my uniform like she was afraid I'd disappear. "Your Radiance," I said quietly, not moving. "I believe there's been some confusion." When she spoke, her voice carried such weight that I felt it in my chest. "There is no confusion, Lieutenant Cade. My daughter was one of the 17 children you carried through the radiation. She was an infant then. Part of the Kashari cultural exchange program stationed on Meridian. Even breathing seemed to pause. She has spoken of you every day for 8 years, the matriarch continued. She told us you sang to her while the ship burned, that you wrapped her in your jacket even though it meant greater exposure for you, that you promised her she would see her mother again." The child looked up at me. Her eyes were wide and filled with something that looked like hope and desperation braided together. The matriarch leaned close enough that protocol shattered like dropped crystal. close enough that I could see the faint scars along her neck from what I suddenly recognized as radiation burns. Old ones, healed but never forgotten, she whispered, and though her voice was barely audible, each word landed with the force of orbital bombardment. My daughter only wants you. 2 civilizations balanced on whatever came next. And I stood absolutely still while a child held onto my leg and refused to let go. The matriarch straightened but didn't step back. Her proximity violated every diplomatic protocol in both our cultures. Ambassador Chen found his voice first. Your Radiance, if we might, be silent. The matriarch didn't look at him. Her center eye remained fixed on me while her outer eyes tracked her daughter's grip on my uniform. Lieutenant Cade understands what I am saying. The rest of you do not yet need to. Through the fabric I felt her trembling, not fear.
Something else. Something that made my throat tight.
Permission to speak freely, Your Radiance, I said. Granted. What does she want from me? The question carried implications that made the guard shift her stance. The matriarch's robes cycled through colors that might have been amusement or might have been something darker. To understand why, the matriarch said. She has asked this question in every language we share. Why would an alien risk death for children not his own? Why would a soldier defy orders to save strangers? Why would a human burn from the inside out rather than leave anyone behind? I was doing my job, he said. You were court-martialed for doing your job. Then I was doing what was right. You species uses this term frequently. Our linguistics teams struggle with its full meaning. We have concepts for duty, for honor debt, for clan obligation. But right? This seems to exist independent of consequence or benefit. Sometimes it does. This troubles my daughter deeply. The matriarch knelt, bringing herself level with the child still attached to my leg. She spoke in their language, sounds that resonated in registers human ears barely processed. Asha responded without releasing me, her voice small but insistent. The matriarch rose. She says you are incomplete. That human faces show only single emotions at a time. That you smiled while dying, and this makes no sense in our understanding of survival behavior. She gazed up at me with eyes that held questions 8 years deep. I wasn't dying, I told her directly. I was winning. Her head tilted. The gesture was perfectly human despite her alien features. Every kid I got out was a victory, I said. Every deck I crossed meant we were closer to the escape pods. When I carried you, I was winning 17 times over. But you burned, Asha whispered. Yes, it hurt. Very much. But you smiled. Because you were safe. She'd processed this with an intensity that seemed far too heavy for a child. Her attendants stood frozen, clearly wanting to retrieve her but not daring to move without the matriarch's permission. Among my people, the matriarch said, such behavior indicates severe mental instability. We have terms for it. Broken mind. Fracture thought. Those who value others above self-preservation are considered ill. They are cared for but never given authority, never permitted near children, never allowed to make decisions that affect the clan. Is that what you believe? I believed it absolutely. Her robes shifted to a color I'd never seen before. Until I held my daughter again. Until I learned the full story of the Meridian. Until I spent 8 years watching her search every human face she encountered, looking for the one who sang to her in the fire. Ambassador Chen cleared his throat carefully. Your Radiance, the treaty signing, can wait, the matriarch said. This cannot. She gestured, and her attendants brought forward a case I hadn't noticed them carrying. It was made of the same obsidian as the walls, etched with symbols that predated human spaceflight. When the Kashari first encountered humanity, the matriarch said, we were confused. Your species acts against self-interest with disturbing frequency. You risk life for strangers. You sacrifice advantage for concepts like fairness and mercy. You choose death over dishonor when dishonor would let you survive. Inside lay 3 objects, a shattered piece of hull plating marked with the Meridian's designation, a small bundle of fabric that I recognized with a jolt as my old uniform jacket, and a data crystal that glowed with stored information. We studied you, the matriarch continued. For 30 years before the Meridian incident, we observed and analyzed. We concluded that humanity was dangerously irrational. That treaty with your kind would be impossible because you could not be predicted or trusted to act in logical self-interest. She lifted the jacket. It was scorched and stiff with age. My daughter kept this. She would not let our medical teams dispose of it. She slept with it wrapped around her every night until she grew too large for it to cover her. The matriarch's voice held something I couldn't quite identify. She said it smelled like safety. Asha nodded against my leg. The data crystal contains every file we have on you, Lieutenant Cade. Every medical scan from your radiation treatment. Every transcript from your court-martial. Every recorded action from your military service. The matriarch's center eye closed briefly. Do you know what we discovered? No, Your Radiance. That humanity is filled with beings who will burn for strangers, who will stand against authority for principle, who will suffer for those they have no obligation to protect. She paused. We find this terrifying. The word hung in the air like a threat. But my daughter, the matriarch continued, voice softening in a way that made her seem suddenly, devastatingly mortal, does not find it terrifying. She finds it miraculous. And she has asked me every day for 8 years when she can see you again, when she can understand how a being can choose pain over safety and call it winning. I felt Asha's grip tighten. So I must ask you directly, Lieutenant Cade, because this treaty and the future between our peoples may depend on your answer. The matriarch stepped closer still, near enough that I could see the faint marks of old tears on her face. Will you help me teach my daughter why humans burn? The question wasn't what I expected. Nothing about this situation was. I'd been assigned a diplomatic guard duty because my service record made me suitable for standing silently in corners while important people made important decisions. No one thought the Kashari matriarch would know my name, let alone my history. Your Radiance, I said carefully, I'm not qualified to teach anyone, especially not... I am not asking you to instruct her in human philosophy or cultural norms. I am asking if you will let her ask you questions. If you will answer honestly. If you will help a child understand why the being who saved her life chose to do so. Asha looked up at me. Her eyes were impossibly wide. For how long, I asked. As long as necessary. The matriarch gestured to the hall around us. This treaty signing is not merely about trade routes or military cooperation. It is about whether two species fundamentally different in how we value life can coexist. My people believe that self-preservation is the highest virtue. Yours seems to believe that sacrificing self-preservation is sometimes necessary. These philosophies are incompatible unless we understand the mechanism behind your choice. The mechanism is simple, I said. I saw children who needed help. No, the matriarch's robes darkened. That is the trigger, not the mechanism. A Kashari in your position would have calculated survival probability, assessed the value exchange, and made the logical choice to preserve themselves. You calculated the same probabilities. The Meridian's medical logs show you understood exactly how much radiation exposure you were accepting. Yet you chose differently. Why? Because they were children. So you value youth over adult life? I value innocent life over my own comfort. Define innocent. They hadn't done anything to deserve death, I said finally. They were just in the wrong place when the flare hit. Someone had to get them out. Why someone? Why not specifically you? Because I could. And if you had died, then someone else would have finished the evacuation? The matriarch made that water over stones sound again. You assumed competence in others. You trusted the system to function without you. Yes. This is irrational. Systems fail. Others might have chosen differently. We got everyone out. 17 children survived. You nearly died. 3 adults under your command sustained permanent injuries. By our calculations, the resource cost of your injuries exceeded the potential future contribution of those you saved. I felt something cold settle in my chest. You're saying we should have left them. I am saying a Kashari officer would have made that calculation and acted accordingly. Then it's good I'm not Kashari. Asha's grip tightened, painful. Her attendants exchanged glances that I couldn't interpret. The matriarch surprised me by showing teeth. Not a threat display, but something closer to a human smile, though the effect was unsettling. That response, she said, is precisely why we must understand you.
You state species difference as moral justification?
You claim humanity's approach as superior through implication, while acknowledging it caused you harm. This is the paradox my daughter needs resolved. I don't think I'm the right person. You are the only person. The matriarch's voice carried absolute certainty. She has met other humans. Diplomats, traders, cultural liaisons. She asks them her questions, and they give her political answers. Careful words designed to maintain alliance. But you? You were court-martialed for choosing conscience over command. You lost rank and freedom for the same principle that drove you into that reactor deck. You cannot give her political answers because you have already paid the price for refusing to compromise. She had a point. My career was proof that I couldn't lie about this even when it cost me everything. What does she want to know? I asked. Asha spoke before her mother could answer. Her standard was heavily accented but clear. Did you think about your family when you were burning? The question hit like a physical blow. Yes, I said. Were they angry that you chose us over them? My throat went tight. My sister was angry. Very angry. Is she still angry? 3 lines. Years between responses now. Yes, I said quietly. Asha's expression shifted. Something that might have been guilt or might have been understanding. Do you regret it? She asked. No. Because 17 kids got to grow up? Because your mother got to hold you again. I looked at the matriarch. Because some things matter more than what's easy or safe or politically acceptable. Even family? Asha pressed. Even family, the matriarch inhaled sharply. Her robes cycled through colors so rapidly they blurred. That answer, she said, voice barely controlled, is why we feared you. Kashari would never place strangers above clan, never choose outsiders over blood. The concept is not merely foreign, it is abhorrent to our deepest survival instincts. Then why are we having this conversation? I asked. Because my daughter is not the only one who needs to understand. The matriarch gestured, and the walls of the hall suddenly displayed images. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Humans pulling strangers from burning buildings. Humans diving into floods to save people they'd never met. Humans standing between violence and victims. Humans choosing death over abandoning others. We have documented this pattern across your entire species, the matriarch said. It is not aberration. It is norm. And if we are to build lasting peace between our peoples, we must understand what drives beings who will burn for strangers.
Ambassador Chen stepped forward carefully.
Your Radiance, with respect, this seems like a matter for cultural exchange programs, not treaty negotiations. The matriarch turned to face him fully. Ambassador, this is the negotiation. My people will not bind themselves in alliance with a species they cannot predict. We need to know whether humanity's tendency toward self-sacrifice makes you reliable partners or dangerous liabilities. And you think interrogating one guard will answer that? I think, the matriarch said softly, that if my daughter can understand why one human chose to burn for her, she can help our entire civilization understand why humans choose to burn at all. She looked back at me. Lieutenant Cade, I am not asking you to betray military secrets or compromise your people's position. I am asking you to spend time with a child who has questions about why she's alive. Will you do this? Asha's hands trembled against my leg. Every instinct screamed that this was bigger than it appeared. That agreeing meant becoming the fulcrum for something I didn't fully understand. That my court-martial and disgrace should have taught me not to make decisions above my authority. But I looked down at a child who'd spent 8 years wondering why someone saved her, who'd kept a scorched jacket because it smelled like safety, who needed to understand that her survival wasn't random luck but conscious choice. Yes, I said. I'll answer her questions. The matriarch's robe shifted to brilliant gold. Behind her, the delegation relaxed incrementally. Then we will proceed with the treaty signing, the matriarch said. And afterward, you will join my daughter for the first of many conversations. She signaled her attendants. They approached cautiously, clearly expecting to have to pull Asha away from me. Instead, the matriarch spoke a few words in their language, and Asha released my leg voluntarily. She stepped back but kept her eyes on me. Thank you, she whispered. You're welcome, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure what I'd just agreed to. The treaty signing proceeded with all the formal precision diplomacy required. I stood at attention through the entire ceremony, watching 2 civilizations bind themselves in alliance while wondering what role one disgraced lieutenant was about to play in making it work. The formal reception after the signing felt like walking through water. Diplomats circulated with careful smiles and wine that cost more than my annual salary. The Kashari delegation moved through the crowd like predators who'd learned to pretend they weren't hunting. I stayed at my post near the east wall, trying to become invisible the way good guards did. Asha found me anyway. She appeared beside me without warning, flanked by her attendants who looked resigned to the fact that their charge would not stay where she was placed. You're supposed to be with your mother, I said quietly. She told me I could talk to you during the reception. Asha's standard had improved noticeably, even in the hours since we'd first spoken. She said you would answer questions honestly. That's a dangerous promise to make. Why? Because honest answers aren't always kind. She considered this with that too serious expression. I don't need kind. I need true. One of her attendants made a sound like wind through hollow reeds. Disapproval, probably. I couldn't blame them. I was a disgraced foreign soldier, and their princess was treating me like I mattered. One question, I said. Then you should get back to your mother. Asha nodded. Did you know any of us? The children you saved? No. Not even our names? I didn't learn your names until months later. During the court-martial, they listed every person I'd endangered by refusing to evacuate on schedule. They said we were endangering? No. They said I endangered the ship and crew by staying past the safe window. You were listed as the reason for my disobedience. Her face did something complicated. We were evidence against you. You were the reason I did what I did. That doesn't make sense. If we caused your punishment, why don't you hate us? I knelt so we were eye level. Her attendants tensed but didn't interfere. You didn't cause anything, I said. I chose. I accepted the consequences. You were just kids who needed help. But your sister is angry. Your career is destroyed. You lost everything. I lost rank and freedom for a while. I didn't lose everything. What did you keep? I thought about the years after the court-martial, the isolation, the disgrace, the careful distance everyone maintained from the officer who disobeyed direct orders. I kept knowing I did the right thing, I said finally. I kept being able to look at myself without shame. I kept the certainty that 17 kids went home to their families because I refused to leave. That's all? That's everything. She studied me with eyes that seemed far older than 7. Humans are strange. Absolutely. Mother says humans are dangerous because you value wrong things. What do you think? I think you valued me when you didn't have to. When it hurt you. When it cost you everything you just said you kept. She paused. I think that's not wrong. I think that's why I'm alive. One of the attendants spoke sharply in their language. Asha responded with equal sharpness, not looking away from me. I have to go, she said. But tomorrow morning, can we talk more? If your mother permits it. She needs you to help me understand. Understand what?
White.
Why humans are worth the risk of alliance. Why you're not just dangerous but good dangerous instead of bad dangerous. Asha smiled, and the expression was entirely human despite her alien features. She's afraid, you know. Afraid that if she doesn't understand, we'll make wrong choices about your people. That fear will drive decisions instead of knowledge. Your mother is very wise to be afraid, I said. Are you afraid? Terrified? Of what? That'll say something wrong and break whatever fragile peace we just built. She tilted her head. You can't break it. You're not important enough. The brutal honesty of children. I almost laughed. You're probably right, but you can help me understand. And if I understand, I can help Mother understand. And if she understands, maybe our people don't have to be afraid of yours. That's a lot of weight on one conversation. This is just talking. A slightly terrifying point, but still. Tomorrow morning, I agreed. If your mother permits. Asha nodded and turned to leave. Then she paused and looked back. Lieutenant Cade, thank you for keeping me alive. She was gone before I could respond, leaving me kneeling by the wall while the reception swirled on around me. Ambassador Chen appeared beside me moments later. On your feet, Lieutenant. I stood. He studied me with an expression I couldn't quite parse. Do you have any idea what you just agreed to? He asked quietly, answering a child's questions. You agreed to become the human representative for whether our entire species is trustworthy. His voice was carefully neutral. The matriarch's advisors spent the entire signing ceremony in communication with their home world. They're treating this as the actual test of the alliance, not the treaty. You... Sir, I'm just a guard. You're a convicted officer who chose children over orders. You're the exact type of unpredictable human that terrifies them. And the matriarch's daughter has fixated on you as the key to understanding whether that unpredictability is acceptable or catastrophic. What do you want me to do? Answer honestly. Don't try to make humanity look better than we are. Don't lie about the costs of conscience. And for God's sake, don't minimize what you sacrificed. Why not? Because if they understand the price and still think it was worth paying, we have a chance at real alliance. But if they think we're reckless idiots who don't understand consequences... He shook his head. Then we're confirming their worst fears. No pressure then. None at all. He almost smiled. Get some rest, Lieutenant. I suspect tomorrow will be complicated. He wasn't wrong. I returned to my quarters in the diplomatic compound and spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to explain human irrationality to an alien child whose survival proved we weren't entirely insane. Morning came too quickly. The summons arrived before breakfast, a formal request delivered by one of Ash's attendants. The matriarch requested my presence in the garden courtyard at my earliest convenience, which meant immediately. I dressed in my formal uniform and made my way through corridors that still felt too smooth, too organic, like walking through the inside of something living. The garden courtyard was unlike anything I'd seen before. Plants that shouldn't exist grew in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Water flowed upward in defiance of gravity. The sky overhead was the wrong color. The matriarch stood near the center, alone except for Asha. The child wore simpler robes than yesterday, though still ceremonial by human standards. She brightened when she saw me. "Lieutenant Cad," the matriarch inclined her head. "Thank you for coming. Your radiance requested my presence." I did. 'Cause my daughter could not sleep. She spent the entire night formulating questions. The matriarch's tone carried something that might have been exasperation or might have been fondness. I thought perhaps addressing some of them in daylight might help. "I'll do my best. I ask only for honesty." She gestured to a bench that looked grown rather than built. "Sit. Speak with my daughter. I will be nearby but not listening. This conversation is for her, not me." She withdrew to the far side of the garden, giving us privacy while maintaining line of sight. Professional paranoia. I understood it completely. I sat. Asha joined me, her small frame nearly disappearing into the bench's organic curves. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I have 17 questions. One for each kid?" "But I need to know. Did you know you were dying when you picked me up?" I knew I was taking lethal radiation exposure. I didn't know if the medical team could save me. But you picked me up anyway. Why me specifically? Was I crying louder? Was I closer? You were furthest from the escape pods. I worked back to front, getting the furthest kids first so I wouldn't have to cross the same hot zones twice. That's logical. Saving lives usually is. But not saving your own life. Saving your own life. Sometimes the logic of the situation means your own survival isn't the priority. Did it hurt? Very much? How much? Like every nerve was on fire. Like my bones were melting. Like I was burning from the inside out. And you didn't stop. No. Why not? Because stopping meant leaving kids behind. But you were dying. I was dying anyway. Stopping just meant dying for nothing instead of dying for 17 reasons. Her eyes went wide. You thought you would die no matter what. Yes, so you chose to die accomplishing something. I chose to make my death mean something. I chose to make my death mean something. She was quiet for a long moment. Around us, the impossible plants swayed in wind that didn't exist. "Question 3, she said finally. Do you wish you had died?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Around us, the garden hummed with alien life, plants photosynthesizing colors that human eyes couldn't properly process. The matriarch stood at the far end, perfectly still, pretending not to hear. "No," I said. Ash's expression shifted. "Why not?" "Because living meant I got to know you survived. All 17 of you. Living meant I got to see that it worked. But you lost everything.
Your rank, your freedom.
Your family's respect. I lost some things. Not everything that I feel like happy. What's the difference?" I considered my words carefully. Things I lost, military rank, career advancement, some relationships. Things I kept, the knowledge that I did what was right, the ability to sleep without nightmares about abandoned children, the certainty that I'm the person I thought I was. I value being able to live with myself over being able to impress other people. She tilted her head. "Mother says this is why humans are dangerous. Because you care more about abstract concepts than survival. What do you think?" "I think I'm alive because you care about abstract concepts." She paused. Question 4. If you could go back and choose differently, knowing everything you know now, would you? No. Even knowing you'd be court-martialed? Even knowing that. Why? Because the alternative is letting 17 kids burn while I save myself. I can't live with that version of me. But you can live with the version who lost everything. That version didn't lose everything. That version saved 17 lives. That version can look in mirrors. Asha went quiet, her hands folded in her lap, small and delicate and alive because I'd refused orders. Question 5, she said softly. When you carried me, you sang. Do you remember what song? It had been automatic, something to focus on besides the pain. An old earth lullaby. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Sing it now? I don't think... She'd turned slightly, listening now without pretense. Her robes had shifted to a color I'd never seen, something between mourning and hope. I sang. Quietly, self-consciously, my voice rough with memory and radiation damage that never fully healed. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Aisha's eyes filled with something that might have been tears, though Kashari physiology was different enough that I couldn't be certain. I remember, she whispered. I remember your voice through the burning. I remember feeling safe even though everything was dying. That's what mattered. Do you have children of your own? No. Do you want them? I haven't thought about it much. Why not? Because my life doesn't have room for that kind of responsibility right now. Is it different, or are you afraid? The question cut deeper than she'd probably intended. Maybe afraid? Of failing them? Of not being enough? Of making the wrong choices? But you made the right choice with us. I made the choice I could live with. Whether it was right depends on who you ask. I'm asking you. Then yes, for me it was right. She nodded slowly. Question 7. Do you think all humans would have done what you did? No. Why not? Some would have followed orders, some would have frozen, some would have made different calculations about risk and reward, but you didn't freeze. I didn't have time to freeze. I had kids to move and seconds to move them. You didn't think about it. I thought about it constantly. I just didn't let thinking stop me from acting. That's contradictory. Most of being human is contradictory. Question 8. When the medical team saved you, were you grateful or angry? Both. How can you be both? Angry because surviving meant facing consequences. Humans contain multitudes. Kashari don't. We feel one thing at a time. Clear emotions for clear situations. But it also means we can't understand beings who smile while dying. I didn't smile because I was happy. I smiled because you were safe. Those are different things. Explain the difference. Happiness is about me. Your safety was about you. I could be in agony and still feel satisfaction that you were going to live. She processed this for a long moment. Do you forgive your sister for being angry? She has every right to be angry. That's not what I asked. Even though she won't talk to you? Especially because she won't talk to me. It means she cared enough to be hurt by my choices. That's illogical. Welcome to humanity. She laughed. The sound was bright and unexpected, carrying across the garden. The matriarch turned fully toward us now, her attention complete. Question 10, Asha said, sobering. If you had to choose between saving me and saving your sister, who would you choose? That's not a fair question, but it's an important one. I thought about my sister, about growing up together, about shared history and blood bonds, about the messages that got shorter and colder until they stopped coming entirely. I don't know, I admitted. I'd like to think I'd save both, but if I could only save one, I honestly don't know. You're supposed to choose family. Kashari would choose family. Humans are less consistent. Mother says that's why you're dangerous. She's probably right. Asha studied me with those 2 wise eyes.
Was it 11?
Do you think about us? The 17 children. Every day. Good thoughts or bad thoughts. Complicated thoughts. Wondering how you're doing. If you're happy. If saving you was enough, or if you needed more than just survival. You worry about us sometimes. Why, you don't know us. That creates a connection whether either of us wanted it or not, or just a hope that it mattered. It mattered, she said quietly. We're alive. That matters. I'm glad you think so. For strangers, even knowing the cost? Yes. Why? Because the cost to me is finite. The cost to abandon children is absolute. You value their lives more than your comfort. I value their lives more than my career, my freedom, and my family's approval. Comfort doesn't even factor. Question 13. Do you think humans are better than Kashari because you value others over yourself? We're just different. Your way ensures species survival through protecting the strongest and most capable. Our way ensures we sometimes save people who can't save themselves. Both have merit, but you chose the human way even when it cost everything. Because I'm human, I can't be anything else. Question 14. If I asked you to save me again, right now, from nothing dangerous just because I asked, would you? I'd help you if you asked, even knowing it might cost me. That's irrational. That's human. Do you think my mother is afraid of you? I glanced toward the matriarch. She watched us with an intensity that felt like standing under a microscope. Yes, I said. I think I represent everything about humanity that terrifies her. Unpredictability, irrational self-sacrifice, choosing principle over preservation. Are you afraid of her? Absolutely. Why? Because she holds the future of human-Kashari relations in her hands, and I have no idea if I'm helping or destroying that future by talking to you. You're helping, Asha said with certainty. Question 16. What do you want me to understand most? That question made me pause. What did I want her to understand? That you being alive matters, I said finally. Not because of politics or alliance or species relations, but because you're a person who deserves to exist. That's reason enough. That was always reason enough. Her eyes glistened. Question 17. When you die, however many years from now, what do you want to have mattered? The weight of that question settled over me like gravity. That I left things better than I found them, I said. That when faced with hard choices, I chose according to conscience rather than convenience. That people who needed help got it, even when helping cost me. That my life meant something beyond my own survival. Even if no one remembers, even then, the mattering isn't about being remembered. It's about the choice itself. She was so small, this child who'd survived fire and crossed galaxies and spent 8 years wondering why. Thank you, she said, for answering. For letting me understand. Did it help? I understand now why humans are dangerous, she paused, and why they're necessary. Necessary. Someone has to care about strangers. Someone has to burn for people they'll never know. Someone has to choose conscience over survival. She looked back toward her mother. Kashari can't do that. We're too rational. Too focused on preservation. We need humans to remind us that some things matter more than living. That's a generous interpretation. It's true. Mother knows it too. That's why she's afraid. Because if we don't understand you, we'll try to eliminate the threat. But if we eliminate you, we eliminate something the universe needs. She bowed, a formal gesture that seemed too adult for her small frame. Then she walked toward the matriarch, leaving me alone on the bench. The matriarch met her halfway. They spoke in their language, rapid exchanges that I couldn't follow. Then the matriarch approached me while Asha waited. Lieutenant Cade, she said, my daughter has what she needs. For now. I'm glad I could help. You have done more than help. You have given her framework to understand why her survival was purchased with your suffering, why a stranger chose pain over abandoning her, why humans are worth the risk of alliance despite your dangerous unpredictability. Your radiance, I just answered questions.
You gave her truth at personal cost. You revealed weakness and doubt and fear.
You showed her that human strength comes from choosing principle despite understanding consequence. The matriarch's robes shifted to deep violet. This is what we needed to see. That your species knows the price and pays it anyway. And if we're willing to pay that price for strangers, I said slowly, we might be willing to pay it for allies. Precisely. She extended a hand in a gesture I recognized as profound trust among her people. We will proceed with the alliance. My daughter will continue these conversations when she needs them. You will remain assigned to diplomatic service, if you're willing. Her skin was cooler than human, textured differently, but the grip was firm. I serve where I'm assigned, your radiance. To help two species understand each other, to be living proof that a rational choice can produce rational results. She paused, and to remind us all that sometimes the right choice costs everything and remains right regardless. She released my hand and returned to Asha. They left together, the child looking back once to wave with very human enthusiasm. I sat in the alien garden, surrounded by impossible plants and gravity-defying water, and wondered what I'd just become part of. Ambassador Chen found me an hour later, still sitting there. The matriarch's delegation is calling this a breakthrough, he said. Whatever you told that child, it worked. They're moving forward with full alliance integration. I just talked to her. We proved humanity's comprehensible. Dangerous and irrational, but comprehensible. That's enough for them to take the risk. He studied me. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You've just become the most important guard in diplomatic service. I'm not important. I'm just the one she asked for. Sometimes, he said quietly, that's the same thing. He left me there to consider the strange new future, where a court-martialed officer became the bridge between species by admitting to fear and doubt and irrational choice. The sun set over the impossible garden, painting the sky colors humans had no names for. I thought about 17 children scattered across 2 civilizations now, living their lives because I'd refused to leave them behind. I thought about the price paid and the price still paying, and I thought that maybe, just maybe, some things really did matter more than survival, even if it took burning to prove it.